Hello, my name's Sabrina Waynath and I'm a psychotherapist. This is a short video about the 4 most common mistakes I see people make mid or post binge, and about what not to do during or after a binge. The first point is really to try and stay present, really to not go on autopilot. So the decision to binge often happens very, very fast. We cross over a certain line and suddenly you'll get caught up in that overwhelming compulsion to binge, whether the binge happens to be on anger or alcohol or food, or even if it's just something like sending a whole bunch of text messages that you'll later regret. There's a compulsive quality to it. And very often we go into slightly blurry, foggy zone where we're not really very clear. Very often TV's involved. There's just a sort of numbing out and a checking out that happens. And if you can, you want to avoid that and keep one eye present. So even though you're still binging, you're actually tracking what's going on in your mind and your body. A useful way of doing that is just to say things out loud to yourself. So you might say, oh, I'm opening the fridge and I'm eating this cake because I'm trying to get rid of the loneliness, boredom, knot in my stomach, or the clench in my chest. Whatever it happens to be, you want to actually try and say it out loud, so you're tracking what's actually going on as you're doing it. So the second thing that's really important to remember is not to judge the binge as bad or wrong. Really instead to try and understand its function. If you slow things down enough, you'll often begin to see that a binge serves a purpose. It'll release tension in the body for you, whether that's in the jaw, the chest or the stomach. It'll often quieten sort of distressing or noisy thoughts. So for a while you get a reprieve from your thinking mind. For some people, especially if they find themselves binging on anger or raging or shouting, it's usually a way of releasing a fiery energy in the chest that sort of feels quite explosive, gets rid of that, which sort of feels beneficial, at least in the short term. And then the fourth thing that I often see is people get addicted to a binge just because it causes some kind of excitement or drama in their lives, and in a strange way they're addicted to creating some kind of drama. So once you're clear on why you're binging or how it serves you in a positive way, both with the mind and the body, you start to be able to sort of consider, how could I mimic that relaxation or that excitement without doing a behavior or using a substance that's actually destructive for you. The third point that's really important is not to speak to yourself in a harsh way. Very often when we're trying to change a behaviour and yet find ourselves doing it over and over again, it unleashes a really critical, judgmental voice in our minds, and we speak to ourselves very harshly. There's a lot of self-hatred and self-loathing. The way to shift that is to really remember that the binge is a coping mechanism, and to really picture the little boy or the little girl inside of you who's entirely overwhelmed and frightened, a much, much younger version of you. And imagine how you'd speak to that little boy or the little girl. You'd never tell, let's say an 8-year-old, oh, you're a complete loser, I can't believe you did that again. You'd be much, much more supportive, and you really want to give that unconditional love where even if he or she is binging, you're like, I'm right here for you, it's okay, it's all going to be okay. The more you speak in a reassuring voice to that sort of younger version of you, the more you'll find your whole body relaxes and the less you'll be compelled to binge. The fourth point that's really important is that after a binge, try not to make unrealistic plans. Very, very often people set themselves up for more failure by making completely unrealistic plans, especially around food or diets. Try not to do that. Instead, see if you can focus your energy on really slowing the process down and seeing what were the thoughts that triggered my binge. And you really want to see, what was I thinking? And actually write down the top 10 thoughts. Every time you binge, you want to see what was the thought that triggered it. And it may be something as simple, oh, I ate too much. and so I'd already crossed the line and it was all ruined, or he didn't call me, I'll always be alone. Whatever those often quite dramatic thoughts, very black and white thinking, and you really want to become so familiar with those that you don't buy into the story when they next show up in your mind. And also to track, well, what were the feelings that was so difficult for you to sit with? What were the feelings you were having before the binge? Whether that's a boredom or an anger or restlessness. And you want to see where were those sensations in my body? And next time that they show up, it becomes like a game. You want to see, can you be so alert that you're ready for that thought or that feeling, and that you're ready to go into completely new territory by just sitting with them and seeing if you can actually feel them, because all those feelings you can't just sit with. They absolutely will pass. It's just a matter of sort of building up your muscle to be able to tolerate them. So those were the 4 most common mistakes that I see people make either during or after a binge. Do bear in mind that the most important piece of the message is really to love yourself even as you're binging. Very often we feel, no, I'll love myself once I'm perfect. It doesn't work that way. Really see if you can give yourself that unconditional love no matter what the external situation looks like. The more you give yourself that unconditional love, the more you'll find your mind and body relax, and the less you'll be pulled into destructive cycles of whatever sort. Hope that's helpful. Do feel free to visit my website, www.sabrinawayneff.com. Thanks so much for watching.